Recording. Hey guys, Corey here from Rigwell. Today we got another awesome how-to video coming your way. We're going to teach you how to trim your fenders so when you put those big new BFG tires on your Sprinter VS30 2019 or newer, they're not going to rub. So let's get right into this. It's going to be a quick tutorial, show you how to do it. It's a simple job. Here we go. The reason we are cutting our fenders is because we just got brand new Method 703 trail wheels and 17-inch, and we paired those up with 275 70/17s. So it's as big as you want to go on these Sprinters. If you go 285, there's I think one person in the country who knows how to recalibrate the computer so you can go that large, but stick with the 275. They look awesome. It's a major upgrade from the stock 245s, and they look super cool and they're gonna ride better off-road. So that is why we're doing this fender cut, because we put these sweet new wheels on. We got the tools laid out for the job here. First thing, a pair of gloves. Always like to have those when we're trimming metal. Here you have this is a T25 Torx. I also have this ghetto contraption. It's just a little T25 in a vice grips, so you can get into the wheel well. A little bit of a clearance issue there, so sometimes it's a little hard to get the full-size screwdriver in there. You're going to need a 10mm socket. We got our paint, and that's to touch up all the bare metal so we don't have any rusting in the future. I'm not exactly sure what this tool is called, but basically just a ruler, because you're going to need to measure an inch. Next up, we have our angle grinder, and we have our flap disc wheel on here, and also our cutoff wheel. And this kit can be substituted for your regular old jigsaw. This will work just fine as well. And utility knife, we got to do a little trimming of the mud flap. And then of course your safety eye protection. So that's really all you need to get started with this job. Let's get into the first step, and that's removing the mud flap and the inner fender well. This T25 screw here, and there's one right here. You have a 10mm right here, and then up underneath, if you guys see this, there's one right there. So let's pop those off quick and we'll continue on. The next step is to take out the inner fender liner here, and there's two more 10mm bolts. We'll just use our ratchet here and we'll get those right off. We missed a bolt. That's why it won't come off. So scratch that. There's not two, but there's 3 10mm, and that's what holds it on. So, my bad. Now that we got the inner fender liner out, I'll show you exactly what we're looking at and what we need to do from here. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're leaving this tab. These are the tabs that your mud flap bolts into. So we're going to start our cut here, and we're going to cut this tab off, and this lip you see here of the pinch weld, that all gets cut off. So I'll show you that in the next step, how we're going to tape this and mark it out. The other thing to note here is this is the back piece. It's just a little bracket. It's like a Z. And we need to bend that back, and I'll also show you how to do that. So this is this curves in too much, and that's what we need to cut away so that these tires won't rub. The next step is going to be taking our square here, and we have it set to 1 inch depth. So you're going to put this up at the bottom of the panel, right up against, and draw yourself a line at 1 inch. we're gonna go straight across onto the fender. So straight across here, and we'll make a mark right there. So that's basically where we need to stop cutting so we don't cut this tab off. That's the most important thing, is we need this tab. So now we have our inch mark right here and our stop cut mark here. And the way we're gonna get the radius to know how to cut is by using the mud flap curve. Grab your mud flap, hook on the bottom screw and then the inner screw, and then you're just gonna line up this edge right here at the top and then push it in until your bottom edge lines up with your inch mark there. Then you just simply take your pen and give it a scribe. Now we have our perfectly scribed line. You can see it's wide towards the bottom here and it tapers up all the way to where we stop cutting. So next what we're gonna do is just tape this off so we have a really good visual guide of where we're gonna cut and start cutting. Now that we got it all taped up, you can really see the part we're gonna be cutting off. Then also, when you look down here at the bottom, you just continue your tape line straight down to the bottom. And what that's gonna do is wrap around, get it in focus here, to this lip. So we're gonna cut this lip off. And you will be able to tell there's where two pieces of metal join here. This piece and this piece. This piece needs to go, but don't cut into this. So you could see that. Try to get some good angles here for you. And there you have it. So now you can see we followed our blue tape line down through and we're cut all the way back to this seam back here. I'm just going to take a flap wheel and just clean it up a little bit, and we can take all this tape off. And move on to the next step. Next on our list, that raw metal edge absolutely needs to be coated in some paint. So let's paint that edge, and then we can take care of the bracket while that paint's drying, and then we can wrap it all up and put it back together. Don't be scared to really lay it on thick with the paint. This is all gonna get covered up with the mud flap. Right now I'm using black against white. You'll never see it. It's all gonna be covered once that mud flap goes back on. Most important thing is that all that metal is just really covered, just to future-proof it from rust down the line. So smear it on. Next up, let's pull off that bracket. It's just held on with the same nylon 10mm bolt that we pulled off before. So grab that guy, and if you have a vise, that's where we're heading next. One little hack here is when you're pulling this guy down, pay close attention to where the bolt goes in the top. And also, there's another little piece right here that kind of just holds it straight. Draw a little arrow. I don't know, my camera's not focusing great. Draw a little arrow so you know once you take it off which way you need to bend this thing, because we need to bend this 2 inches backwards. So my arrow is telling me which way I need to go. So I just drop it in the vise here, crank the vise, closed. Okay, now you can see it's fairly straight right now. So we need to take this, we're gonna give it a couple whacks right here with the hammer. And it's not super scientific, but we're just gonna bend this back about 2 inches so it's coming at an angle. Okay, so I'm standing at the same angle. This bracket used to come down this way. Now it's got a nice bent back. Next step is going ahead and putting the fender liner back in. A little trick with this, if you line up the bottom one on the bracket that we bent first, it'll make it a little easier to pop in. But just have a little patience, wiggle it back in, and we'll be good to go. That was a bit of a fight, but now we can put our 3 screws back on. Now you really can see what a difference this makes. See how this whole inner fender well here wants to stick off. It's because we trimmed this out. Remember what I said about this black paint? We got it on here nice and thick, but that's okay. Our mud flap is going to cover that right up. Next, we're going to modify the mud flap just a little bit. So in this corner right here, you see I've already Sharpied. Since we're moving this back, it rubs right here. So you just want to take, not even a 1/4 inch, about an 1/8 or maybe just a little more off, and you can just use your utility knife and just right where it starts to bend, just cut this little sliver off, and that'll just allow it to push back right into place. This one's a little difficult to show, but this right here is where we cut, and once you cut it, you can put the mud flap on, test it, make sure it's not hitting here, because if it's hitting, it won't let you push it back all the way. Now, one super important thing to note, and something that we're changing, we're still going to use the top hole of your mud flap here, but we cut off the bracket for the bottom hole, so that's no longer there. But we do need to secure the bottom of the mud flap. So how we're going to do that is down here where it juts in the back corner, we're going to throw a self-tapping screw straight up, and that'll go right into the bottom of the fender, and that'll hold this nice and snug. So let me show you. It's a little dark with the camera, but I'll try to show you exactly where I put that screw. It's really hard to get this shot, but you can see the screw head right there when I'm out of the light. So all you got to do is hold back this mud flap, because you see this still moves quite a bit. So you want to hold it back with one hand and then get that screw straight up through, and that's going to go right up through this fender piece that we cut and hold the mud flap back. So it's super important that you grab this. You could either wedge something in here or whatever you got to do. Make sure the mud flap's all the way back, and then set that screw straight up into the fender here. Let's do that now.